Hey everybody, so today I'm going to talk about a couple different things. I have a couple things planned that I want to share. I know people are probably still coming on because it's exactly 2 o'clock when I said I was going to be on. And sometimes I'm a couple minutes late, so people are probably used to that. So today I want to talk about like 7 different things in Photoshop. And then when I come back next week, so Tuesday and Thursday of next week, I'm going to get into Illustrator and talk about like designing a logo in Illustrator, how to use Illustrator, why to use Illustrator versus Photoshop, that kind of stuff. Show some of the cool features in Illustrator. And I've been going through Photoshop, and it's interesting because if you can use Photoshop, Illustrator is really easy to learn, but it's also in some ways like a almost backwards. When I first learned Illustrator from Photoshop, it frustrated me. So you're going to find some frustration with Illustrator a little bit, and for good reason, which I'll talk about next week. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about today is something that I haven't talked about so far. And for those of you who are in my class and watching this, it's not mentioned in our class, and it wasn't mentioned on purpose. And it's something that I haven't talked about yet so far in any videos, actually, that I've created. And the reason is it's something that's very particular. It was very particular to like streaming and people who do like live streams, people who stream video games, the esports stuff that I'm interested in, that kind of audience. But with the over the last semester, since coronavirus and everything, it's become something that's going to be very common, especially this fall, as people start using Zoom, more people use Zoom, as people use YouTube streaming, as people use any streaming software out there. They're going to start doing this more often, and it relates to Adobe Photoshop. So I wanted to just show you really quick, just because I hadn't talked about it, and I think it's something that's going to be coming in the next year. You're going to start to hear more about this topic. And that is overlays. Let me pull this up. So if you're not familiar with what an overlay is a graphic that you use when you're streaming or creating a video. For example, if you look at my screen right now, I have, there's a picture that says, "Be right back." Now, obviously, if you're familiar with Photoshop, this is an extremely easy picture to develop. But one of the things that we're starting to see, and this is something that I'm seeing in instructional design and e-learning, as like in online education and K-12, that we're doing more and more often, and Zoom doesn't do the best job of allowing overlays yet. It will. And in fact, so one of the reasons, so if you guys notice, I do my videos. Notice how I don't use Zoom, because I could use Zoom and I could then stream it to YouTube or something like that. But I bypass Zoom. I don't use Zoom unless I'm having a direct one-to-one meeting with someone. The reason I don't use Zoom for something like what I'm doing right now, notice how whenever I'm doing my tutorials, I'm like, you know what? Someone's like, hey, you're covering the video. Or I want to make, my picture big or small or something like that. Really, really simple in the software that I'm using to do that. I use OBS to stream. It's way better than something like Zoom. Zoom's great for a one-to-one meeting, not for what I'm doing right now. So if anyone's ever curious about why I do stuff, always ask. But like, I have reasons. I've tested all this stuff extensively, and I have my preferences. So not to say it's always the best. It's what I prefer for certain reasons. So I really prefer OBS as my streaming software to stream and make any of this stuff versus something like Zoom. I do use Zoom. Like, I did an interview yesterday with the general manager for the Wilmington Sharks. We use Zoom for the interview because it's perfect for a one-on-one. Okay, so anyway, when you are creating, like, if you're in a part of let's say you're working for a company, and I'll just use training as an example because a lot of my audience is always instructional designers. All my students in my classes are instructional designers. And you're creating that Zoom room. Okay, so let's see, where is my mouse? Perfect. So before you start streaming, when everyone's there in the Zoom room, you know how of course my computer is doing a scan right now. No, let's cancel that. instead of, so when everyone, and you know, we're right now at this point in society where we're learning about what is like Zoom etiquette, what is the etiquette for like these live meetings that we're having all the time, teachers, workers everywhere that we're having. When we enter that Zoom room, what's the first thing you see? You see like someone sitting there, maybe you see nothing. What we're starting to do is we're starting to pull from the people who are the best streamers, which are the people on Twitch and YouTube, and we're starting to pull their best practices into what we're doing in Zoom. One of those is creating overlays. Overlays are basically images that you put up on the screen as part of like your Zoom meeting or your YouTube stream or whatever that help the user make the screen look a little better. So like the picture that you see on the screen right now, stream starting soon, could be an example kind of image that when someone pops into your Zoom room, they're going to see something like this versus just seeing like your face. So they know like starting soon, starting in a couple minutes, a message for them. The first thing I said, oh, be right back. Like we're taking a break. Everyone's going to be right back. We pull up an image. So people who can use Photoshop to create these kind of images are going to start to be invaluable to any kind of meeting that you have, any organization that's having meetings. It's just another use of Photoshop that I wanted to very quickly talk about. And it's not just like a stream starting soon or be right back. People are using this while they talk. Like if you want, any of you watch the news, like just put on the evening news. Now this, what I have a picture of that I have here is an example of a Twitch streamer, because they have like, you know, donate to me and stuff like that. But, an overlay is very similar to what you see on the evening news, and we're developing all those images in Adobe Photoshop, importing them into Zoom, importing them into OBS, whatever streaming software we're using at the time. I just wanted to mention that because these are very easy to develop in Photoshop if you know Photoshop, but I did just want to mention them as there's something about Photoshop, and I haven't talked about it yet. Someone asked, so this is free for your channel live stream. Do you have a certain number of subscribers? No. Oh, so, and OBS doesn't work on Mac, right? Is that, so the first, let me answer the first question. Does OBS work on Mac? What is OBS? So OBS, I can pull OBS into my screen really quick, and I do want to get into Photoshop, so I'm going to spend just a little second. And actually, no, never mind. You don't even want to see this because it's trying to stream itself, so you're just seeing like the multiple version of it. But OBS is a free open source streaming software, works on Mac and PC. It's probably the most popular streaming software out there. It's extremely powerful. It's the most powerful streaming software out there. It's awesome. Something like Zoom is designed for video conferencing. Zoom is not designed for streaming. Zoom can stream, but it's not what it's designed for. OBS gives me a lot more flexibility, which is why I use it. I only use Zoom if I have to. And then someone asks, is this free? Everything that I'm doing is 100% free. Streaming to YouTube, I do believe in order to stream on YouTube, you may have to have a certain amount of subscribers, but you don't have to do that to stream on Twitch. I do. I have like 4,500, something like that, subscribers. So I'm able to stream as long as I want to. But I think, yeah, in order to live stream, you may have to have some subscribers and stuff. Zoom does have some limitations with free versions and stuff like that. And we're totally off topic right now, but that's okay. Zoom does have some free limitations of the free version. At UNCW, where I have access to the full version of Zoom, so I don't have any of those limitations, which is very nice. We've been using Zoom there for about 2 years now. We were using Adobe Connect. We were using WebEx before Zoom, so we did have some options. So with OBS, yes, I can move myself on the screen wherever I want to. I could actually add 20 pictures of myself on the screen. I could add anything I want to. I can customize this interface that you're seeing right now in any way that I choose to. And that's why I love OBS, because it's very powerful. It's somewhat similar to the Zoom virtual background, but that's literally all Zoom does is the virtual background. Their audio and video options are extremely limited. I mean, really limited. I can't even change the size of my video in Zoom. It's one of the things I can't stand about the software. I love Zoom. I actually really like it, but there are things that I can't stand about it. I'm really good at picking apart things. Me and my wife were just talking about that today, that I'm really good at criticizing, not good at complimenting, and it's something I need to work on. Yes, OBS is easy to use. It's intimidating the first time you open it up, but just like anything, the first time you use it, you got to, figure it out, learn the ins and outs, and then it's actually a really easy piece of software to use. So I really like it. And OBS is free. It's open broadcast software. Open broadcast software. And it is you can make videos, you can record your desktop in it, you can do so many different things using OBS. I literally use this software every day. It's one of my favorite pieces of software I have on my machine. I can record a desktop, I can create a tutorial, I can create a live stream. There's so many uses with it. But what I was talking about with these overlays are something that you would create in Photoshop and then pull into Zoom, pull into a program like OBS. Very easy to create. And think of the news. The next time you're watching like the news, whether it's whatever news you prefer. I know we have like these political spectrum news stations. Whatever one you're watching, it doesn't matter. They all have overlays. They're all doing this. And now they're using video software to do it because they're using video like, Final Cut, Adobe Premiere to create their news station. But when we're creating video for the web, we're probably not always using that. And especially as teachers and educators and people in e-learning and training are using Zoom a lot right now, being able to create these overlays is going to help make our presentations just that much better. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about overlays. I just wanted to bring up the topic because I thought it's something that is important. Okay. Getting into Adobe Photoshop. I know that was a little rambling for 12 minutes, but I wanted you to be familiar with the term overlays, what they're used for, and some of the ways that they are being used, and that because you're learning Adobe Photoshop, you should be able to create them. So just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, let's see. Let's pull up some stuff. What do I want to play with today? Let's pull my picture of Hunt up again, because this is what I used last time I talked on Tuesday, and I think it'll be a good image to use again today. So as I said last week, this is my 5-year-old. I think we've officially decided we're keeping him online. We're going to do online with our kids this year. He's online kindergarten, which is kind of crazy. So I have a good friend that's an epidemiologist, and I spoke with him yesterday. I'm going to be interviewing him next week. We've done 2 other interviews, and the general census of what I'm getting from his texts are he recommends children staying home right now if they have not had this virus yet. So we are probably going to be listening to him. Okay, so first thing I wanted to talk about, I had a question today about pixelation and file sizes and stuff like that, and I just wanted to talk about that really quick. So one of the things I mentioned multiple times, you can make an image smaller, but you can't make it bigger. When you try to make something bigger, it will always appear pixelated in Photoshop, because Photoshop images are raster images, which are based on pixels. For example, let me zoom in on this picture. As I zoom in further and further, we get down to the pixel level. You can see pixels up on the screen. So I can't make this bigger. As I try to make an image bigger, and let's do it. Let's make this image bigger. Okay, so first of all, right here is 100% of the image. Let's make it smaller. Notice how I'm making it smaller. I'm not really losing any quality. I mean, our eyes eventually make it blurry because we can't see any better. But we're not really losing quality. But when we try to make the image bigger, there's 100%. Let's go to his face because we'll be able to see that very clear. Here's 100%. 200%, I'm already seeing pixelation. 300%, major pixelation. Look at the pixelation at 500%. I cannot blow up an image. It doesn't work like that. I can make it smaller, I cannot make it bigger. So when you're making something, especially if you're making things separately at different times and then you're going to put them all together, you have to really pay attention to the sizes always. It's very important because it's very easy to make it smaller. It is not easy to make it bigger. And now I'm using, so when I'm making this image smaller and bigger, I'm using Control minus and Control plus. Those of you on Macs, it's going to be different. I don't know the Mac shortcuts. But I can change the image size other ways. So I can change the image size right here. I can go to Image, Image Size. As I've mentioned before, you always pay attention to what you're using. I prefer pixels. Sometimes I will use the inches, but I mostly always use pixels. I pay attention to my pixels, and I pay attention to my resolution, whether I'm developing on the web or I'm developing for the computer. All right, so that's my image size. But in addition to image size, I have my canvas size. Canvas size and image size are two different things. Like, let's say I wanted to create a border around my entire image. I could add 1 inch to my width and height. Click OK, and I've created a border. Now, why is my border red? Why would my border be red when I did that? Wouldn't you imagine it'd be like white or black? Because those are the two like basic colors. Because if you look in the lower left-hand corner of my screen here, you can see that red is the background color selected from the last time I used Photoshop. So it's automatically making it red. I can very easily change that color if I would like to with the paint bucket or whatever, but I'll just keep it for now. I'm actually going to undo it. Okay, so, and I'll answer the question that just popped up in a second. Another thing about canvas size is I can change just like the left or the right. I can click this arrow, and I'm just adding space to the right. Just a tool to play around with. But you can do that. So someone asked a question, would I suggest creating something in large format for future use? So let me tell you what I do and what other photographers do as well. So I don't create something larger in Photoshop because I usually, when I'm working in Photoshop, I'm working with photos. If I'm like creating something from scratch, like drawing, creating a logo, I'm using Illustrator. And we're going to get to Illustrator next week, but remember, Illustrator is based on mathematical properties, so you can blow it up or shrink it down. It's based on math. Photoshop is based on pixels, raster graphics. Illustrator vector, Photoshop raster. So I can't make it bigger. So usually when a photographer is taking pictures with their SLR camera, they generally have the file size to be huge. They have the pictures as big as they can get them, so that they're sure that they have the correct size. I take my pictures bigger than I need them. I take them at a nice, usually in RAW format or JPEG format, and they're big, and those are my backups, and that's what I save. Then I pull them into Photoshop and do my edits. But I always, yes, my photos, I always make them bigger than what I probably need. That way, in case if I ever need it bigger, I have it. But I can't do the, because I can just make it smaller. I can't do the reverse. So yes, I always make my photos bigger. Someone asked a question, why do I always get an error message saying something isn't rasterized? I don't know the answer offhand why you're getting that message. I would imagine that you're probably trying to work from the background layer. Could be one of the reasons you're going to get that error. I put something in the layer 1. I just put it in the layer 1. That could be one of the reasons. Also, if you're working in a shape, if you pull some kind, like if you drew something or created some kind of shape in Photoshop, like if I created one of these shapes right here, I could get the raster size error as well because I need to make the image pixelated and it's based on math. Unfortunately, some of the things Photoshop does sometimes, it's like it's trying to do too much, like how I've mentioned that it shouldn't be doing 3D, it's trying to. Sometimes it's like actually trying to do some of the stuff Illustrator does, and you need to convert that image into a raster image. And I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit, and let me let me do that. So let's say you are getting that image. Let's say you do pull something into Photoshop and it's not, there's a layer like text that's not letting you edit really well, or you are getting that raster size image, or you pull something in from Illustrator. And let's say you have like, I don't know, 5 layers here, you know, one with text. Let's just, let me delete these 3 that I just created. Yeah, so the person just responded that they're getting this error with the shape. So that would be the reason, is because you're looking at a vector shape, a mathematical based shape, and it's not pixelated. So you want to make it pixelated. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to do it with text. So I'm going to add text to the screen. I type my text, but my text is really, really tiny. Let's make it a little bigger than that. Let's say 200 pic. There we go. And let's make it color you can actually see. Now, I notice I can't actually select black perfectly, so I'm just going to type 000 right there, which is the code for black. I just know the code. Well, if any of you do any web programming, you learn the codes for the colors pretty quick. So right now, I can't do too much to my text. And this is the same for shapes too, because the way Photoshop is recognizing it, it's not really recognizing it as an image just yet. Even though if I zoom in on it, it's still going to get pixelated. So what I want to do is I want to combine these 2 layers. Combining these 2 layers will merge them into one. And it will make it, definitely make it a raster image, and it's going to take away any formatting as well. So all of a sudden Photoshop's going to look at, right now it's looking at hello as a separate layer from the picture. So I'm going to go to layer, and I can do 2 things. I can go to merge down, which simply merges one layer down to the next, or I can go to flatten image, which flattens everything like a pancake and makes it one JPEG. I'm just going to click flatten image. It's all part of my background now. Now I definitely would not get a raster size error because everything is a JPEG. It's all one image. I flattened all my layers. I do this sometimes to save space, make something smaller. I do this sometimes like, let's say I create like a series of things in a series of layers and I want it to be one object, like one layer that I can maybe duplicate to another image or something like that. I'll flatten them so that I can keep reusing it so it's all in one layer versus multiple. So I do use this feature all the time, and this is something I wanted to show today, and it should solve that problem that you just asked about. Okay, now on to Hunt. Let's see. Oh, I need to, let me undo this flatten image. Let's get rid of this text and let's go into Hunt. Okay, what I want to do is I want to show you guys how to change a person, because I talked about this and I have created videos on this. I know those of you in my class, I showed you how to use the Liquify tool. I still want to go through it right now anyway, and there are other ways to change a person besides Liquify. So let's say, you know, you hear about like in a magazine, like you hear like the person was photoshopped. I've already shown you guys how to do some of the things like clean up like a face or get rid of like a scar. Like I got rid of my mole on my face. I showed you how to do that very easily, right? You know, there are a bunch of ways to do it. There's always 10 ways to do everything in Photoshop. Same thing goes with changing like someone's, like if I want to change the size of my boogie board or change, let's say Hunt is like, you know what, Dad? He's all in the superheroes right now. We just watched the Avengers, like over the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, we've watched the Avengers. I think tomorrow night we watch Batman. They're all 3 of my kids are in the superheroes right now. So this one wants to be an army guy, but he's like, I'm Hulk, I'm this and that. I showed you guys that picture of me pretending to be the Hulk on Tuesday. So how do you do that? How do you make like my arms and stuff look bigger? Or how would you make them smaller? That's what when I told my wife, I was like, I'm making a picture of the Hulk. She's like, can you do the reverse? I was like, yeah, I can show you that too. But So what I'm going to do is I use the Liquify tool. And I do have a video that I recently created on this like a couple weeks ago. And I know those of you in my course, I've put the Liquify tool in the course. And those of you who just are on my channel, I have it there. But we have the Liquify tool. Liquify tool, so there's a bunch of different options for Liquify, but I really only use two parts of it. Bloat, pucker. Bloat and pucker. And really, really simple to use both of these. Pucker, smaller, bloat, bigger. So I look at Hunt, and I want to make him a little bigger. I can look at like my size and pressure and stuff like that. I'm just going to go with the default right now. I'm going to tap the mouse a little bit. Let's do a lot more than that. That's my mouse size. We don't need the mouse any bigger than it was. Yeah, that's good. Let's do... Oh, yeah. There we go. No, I made him a little off. Like I'm all of a sudden going against physics here a little bit. So I would need to do this slower and with a smaller brush. Need to make sure I do all of him to make sure that it's even. Now we don't need to do his legs. We can even do his head a little bit. Let's give him a little more width there. Oh, I messed up his face. That's okay. Okay. That's previewed, so that's what he looks like. Normal. Oh yeah, I really messed up the head there. I totally should not do the head. Okay, let's cancel that. Let me redo it. I shouldn't have touched his head. And basically what I'm doing right now is I'm tapping the mouse. I do it slow because if you hold the mouse down, it just like continuously does it. Let's get that shoulder a little bigger. Okay, that actually doesn't look too bad. Okay, so Hunt's got some pretty giant arms for a 4-year-old right now. But you can see, like, not preview, normal. Now, I made this completely exaggerated so that you can see it in the picture. But how easy would it be for me to have, like, a beach shot and had, like, just another inch to myself so that I look a lot more buff in the picture? It's really, really simple by doing it really slow to just do that in, like, seconds. Pretty cool. Same thing with like taking away. Like let's say Hunt's like, I want my, oops. There we go. Had to go to preview. I can make his legs smaller. So now Hunt's becoming the bodybuilder that doesn't lift his legs. The legs look a lot more natural too. So take a look at his legs. Normal, smaller, normal, smaller. The smaller actually look natural, actually makes him almost look more muscular. So that's the difference in the legs. So pretty interesting feature, Liquify. It's really powerful. And this is not the only way to change the way someone looks. I could use 5 other tools to do this. I could use spot healing brush, clone stamp, whatever you want to pick. To change the way someone looks. But it's super, super, super easy to do. We've got face-aware Liquify we can play with. I mean, it starts to get really detailed. Now, I can do this kind of stuff with video as well, which is really interesting, but not in Photoshop. I can use like Final Cut. But to do it in Final Cut, it's not default. You have to buy specific software that allows you to do it. Pretty cool feature, though. Okay, let's get out of hunt. I like that feature a lot. It is something that I use. Like when I made that picture of myself being the Incredible Hulk, that's how I did it. And obviously when I did that, which is, oh, where are my sample images? My Incredible Hulk one, obviously that was very extreme bulking. But I need to show this to my kids because they're so into the superheroes right now. Okay. I need to pull up another image. Let's see. Do I like any of these or do I want to pull something else up? Perfect. So I'm going to pull up this image. I'm going to pull up the image. I want to focus on just the kids in this image. So I am going to go to, let's see, we are going to crop. So I'm going to crop the image. I click the crop tool. I'm going to scroll down. This is the boys running through a sprinkler. Okay. I zoom in a little bit. You can tell this was taken with a camera phone. How can I tell it was taken with a cell phone? Well, because there's water blowing right now and you can't see it. If I was using an SLR, I would be able to see the actual water. Notice how this is 100%. So this is the actual size of the image. But the problem with this image is that it's a little blurry. So what I'm going to do is I am going to unblur it a little bit. And I just picked this filter to show you guys because it is something I use a lot with photos, especially photos that are taken with my cell phone. I go to Filter, Sharpen, and I click Sharpen or Sharpen More. I don't really use any of the other sharpen features personally, but you can. So Sharpen sharpens 1 time. Sharpen More sharpens 5 times. It's like just instead of pressing Sharpen 5 times, I can click Sharpen More. I'm going to click Sharpen More 1 time. And you can see that was like way too much. Like there's a big difference there. So I'm going to undo that. That was way too much. So I probably need like 1 or 2 sharpens. And it really does sharpen the image. I think 1 time there made it perfect. So take a look. Sharpen. Redo. I think it looks a lot, this photo, this camera phone photo looks a lot better with just 1 sharpen. Makes it just that much more clear. What it's actually doing is Photoshop is trying to pull away some of the color and it sharpens the image, which is pretty cool. So it's I just wanted to pull that trick out, that filter that I do use all the time. I probably have a video on this somewhere. But I just wanted to show you guys, it is something I do a lot of times when I pull up a camera phone photo. I just tried to pick things today, like make this more of like tips, like final tips, things that I do in Photoshop that I just wanted to talk about that maybe I haven't in my live sessions, even though I have videos on it over the last few weeks. So the sharpen tool is one that I do use all the time. Okay, couple more, 2 more things I want to show. Let's see, right? Yes, 2 more things I want to talk about. All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is just really quick, just some of the options here that you can pull up. So if I click View, I already have my rollers up, but I go to View, Rollers. I have my rollers up actually all the time. Usually when I'm working in Photoshop, I usually have them up just so I can get an idea of how I'm working. In addition to that, so with your rollers, if you click on your roller and drag on the screen, so I click on my roller, hold my mouse down and drag, I can actually create lines. These aren't lines in my photo. These are lines that I'm using for alignment. So I'm just holding the mouse, pulling the roller down. I can use these for placement of things. I can do it on the left or the right. Just a little trick. It's not I don't pull those lines very often, but sometimes I need to for alignment of things, and I will use it. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to show here is not something that I really ever use, but I just wanted to show it, and that is my grid. If I click Show, so View, Show, Grid, it basically turns my image into a, I lost the term, but it basically puts a grid on my screen to help me with alignment and placement of things, so that I can zoom in and know where I am, so that I can align things better. But you can see there's a big grid that's a little darker gray, and then lighter grid that is bulleted. A graph paper is what I wanted to say. And I can unshow it by clicking View, Show, Grid, and it'll take it away. Same thing with the guides. View, Show, Guides, pull them out. But those are just two useful things that I just wanted to really quickly show you all. Okay, last thing I wanted to talk about was just some web, specific things for the web when designing images for the web. Let's see. Okay. So you go to all these websites, like if you're using like, you know, someone just asked the question the other day and they said, well, how do I, you know, if I'm creating my portfolio, what do I do? Do I use like what website? How do people present their portfolio for their job? And, you know, one of the things like in e-learning, really any field, it doesn't matter what you are, you've got to have a portfolio, especially like when you graduate, like if you're graduating from a master's instructional design program, I expect you to have some kind of portfolio. So how do you create that portfolio? You can use Wix. You know, I just commented on their post. You can use Wix, Weebly, WordPress, 10 different sites, Squarespace, whatever. You can create it yourself using code. Doesn't matter what you use. You can even use just the cloud and just have a Dropbox link or OneDrive or Google Docs, whatever, with your portfolio. It's fine. But no matter what template you use, what website you use, you're going to have to add some graphics to it. Now, they're going to have some default graphics for you, probably, possibly. But we're talking about your portfolio, so you might want to have your own. So how do I create these kind of things? Like these are just some sample web templates that I can get. And it's like, okay, well, I like this template, but I need a picture for the background. How do I create that picture? So super, super easy to create that kind of effect on a picture. That I just need a picture and it needs to have like a purple overlay. Or for this one, it was just, I needed to create a background here and I'm going to create, you know, it's a picture of leaves with a stripe down the side. How do I do that? Or this one just has a blue overlay. And then the text and everything in this image is all done via the web. Like I insert, if I'm using Wix or WordPress, I insert my graphic and then the text and buttons and all the stuff are all done via CSS in Wix. I just need the graphic part. So how do I create that? How do I do that? Let me just show you guys. I can pull up any image here that I have. No, we won't use Hunt again. I've been using him all day. Let's say that I really like this flower pick and I want this to be my background. So how do I add like that blue overlay to this or that purple overlay? Really simple. Obviously, I need to put this on a new layer. I'm not even going to do that because I'm just going to create a new layer to work from. All that I need to do is pick a color. What was it? Like a purple overlay, a cool purplish pink overlay. Click OK. Go to my paint bucket tool, or press G. If you don't have it, you can always go down here and edit the toolbar. Going to paste my image. Paste the color. I just pasted it right over. Now, very easy to do. All that I do, I can go to opacity or fill. Just going to bring the opacity down. That's all that is. That's all that's being done for those background images. Super easy to create that effect. So now, instead of using some generic template that the company is giving me, I'm able to use one of the pictures that I may possibly developed or a picture that I've taken to use on my website. And all that you would do in Wix is, like when you, if any of you have ever worked with Wix or WordPress or any of these sites before, when you go to edit the template, you can change all the images. You just upload your image. It has to be the right size. So now you understand sizes. You can go in and edit the right size and upload the correct size image. And you can give it the effect you want to in Photoshop, so you don't have to worry about doing it in CSS. If I can do it in Photoshop, I'm going to do it there. With CSS in Wix and whatever, I'm going to be worrying about my text fonts and button placement and stuff like that. In Photoshop, I'm going to be worrying about making sure my images are all correct. So super easy to create something with that. And then this one that had the bar going up the side, look, this is just simply a bar with a gradient on it. You can see it's like lighter color, upper color. All this text would be put in via the CSS, via the site. So how would I add that bar with a gradient? Easy. I'd create a new layer, bar down the side. I pick my colors. Well, I need to choose gradient. I don't like those colors. They had, what were they? They were like green and like aqua-ish. There we go, green and aqua. Normal, opacity, 100%. Let's bring the opacity down a little bit. No, I don't like that. It's not enough. That's okay. It's just my colors aren't different enough. Let's see. Let me do this a little better. Let's make these colors a little more different so we can see that better. There we go. Now we can see the green a little better. And let's see. Let's bring down the opacity. Can we bring it down at this point? No, I got to go into my layer and bring it down. You can see Photoshop always gives you a bunch of different options. It's exactly how they would have created that. I would simply upload this image to my Wix or Weebly or whatever, and then I'd be able to fill in my text and everything. I'd have to make sure it was the correct size for their template, but that would be all I would do. Very easy to create those web backgrounds. This is where Photoshop really has power and being able to use it. You know, one of the assignments in my class, for those of you in my class watching this, is, you know, develop a mobile website, develop a computer-based website. But realistically, I don't create a website using Photoshop. I personally am going to use one of those pieces of software, and I'm going to be creating all the images in Photoshop. So it's the same thing as the slice tool that you had to do. But, you know, this is realistically like how you do it. This is what you do. So that's everything I wanted to show today. Those are the tools, the things that I wanted to talk about and show. So if anyone has any questions, you guys can ask. Let me know. Or anything. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. You know, there are tons. I've got so many different tutorials on Photoshop on my site. I think I looked how many Photoshop tutorials I had, and it was like ridiculous. I had like over 100 videos on Photoshop on my site. Like it's crazy. And I keep redoing them like every like so the last time I did them was like 2018. I'll probably do them again in like the next year. Just because Photoshop changes just enough that they make you want to redo them, but it's the same piece of software. And there are so many tutorials out there on it, but it's such a cool piece of software. Like someone commented today, like in forums, like how much they love this piece of software, and it's like I just get it because it's just it's so cool to do so many things, and it's so easy, and it impresses. So many people are so impressed when you can send them an image. It's like, I guess now with all the phone filters and all the stuff you can do on the phone, it's making some of this stuff like easier to do that way, but. Still pretty cool. I love this piece of software. I really like Illustrator too. So next week, Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m., I will be talking about Illustrator. Illustrator's fun. Different. How did I make this shape without a rectangle? What do you mean make the shape? The green sidebar, is that what you're asking? How did I make the green sidebar shape? I know there's a little lag in the video, but I think that's what you meant. Assuming that's what you meant, what I did is I selected this rectangular marquee, the selection tool, and I simply drew it on the screen, selected my paint bucket tool, and just pasted it in. So I'm pretty sure that's what you were asking. That's all that I did. I use these selection tools for everything. Selecting oval, selecting circle, selection, selection. These are everything I do in Photoshop or selecting. I've actually never used these shape tools, I don't think. I've never had a need for them. If I'm drawing something, I'm in Illustrator. I edit my photos in Photoshop. I draw. I create shapes and stuff all in Illustrator. And when you get to Illustrator, you'll see why. You'll be a little frustrated at first, but then you might appreciate it. Some people, they only use Illustrator. They don't even touch Photoshop. They just use Illustrator for everything. I use both. I learned Photoshop at first, and then I slowly, over years, started to appreciate Illustrator for what it was, and now I really like it. But yeah, that's how you do it. You simply just use these. You can do the circle one. These two I don't really use because it like scrolls weird. I don't really see a need why I ever want to use them. But yeah, same thing with the circle. I can like add a new layer, pick a new color here, paste it in. I've created a circle. But yeah, this is how I create my shapes. And remember, there are 5 ways to do everything in Photoshop. So I prefer to do it this way. You know, learn the other tools, learn different ways and say, this is what makes sense for me to do this. Like I use the paint tool a lot. I use the selection tools a lot. Some people prefer to do all of that using masks and the paint tool. I prefer to use the selection tools. I think the selection tools are just invaluable. And in other pieces of software, like Animate, like Illustrator, I need to know those selection tools, which is why I appreciate them so much and use them, because I have to use them in other pieces of software as well. All right, everyone, that is everything for today. I hope you enjoyed. Tuesday, Illustrator. Those of you who are in my class watching this, assignments are due coming up. I'm excited to check them out, see what you guys have developed. Always fun seeing them. My favorite assignment that I get to see is the posters, because I love seeing students use their creativity. It's fun. It's probably like my favorite, pretty much my favorite assignment that I have in all my courses ever is the posters in this course. Just to see students use their creativity using Photoshop is awesome. So I'm always blown away by it. So anyway, guys, have a good day. I will see everyone. Have a good weekend.